Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steehn with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with day number 6 of our MLB previews. We are wrapping it up today with a look at the AL West. We have saved perhaps the best for last. And I am joined once again by my co-host, my partner in crime, coming all the way from Long Island, New York. He is Scott Reichel. Scott, how are you today?
Doing pretty well. Yesterday was pretty entertaining. You had a quarantine eating challenge and the WNBA draft. So there was a lot on television or on YouTube that you could have been watching at night. I chose the alternative route. I ended up watching The Untouchables. I actually got back onto the movie streak. So I finally did what I said I was going to do. So it was a nice change of pace. Thought it was a good movie. I kind of wish there was more Al Capone in it, but either or. Yeah, can't really complain.
They sent one of us to the hospital. You sent one of those to the morgue.
Yes. Well done.
Excellent. And keeping it real up there in the great state of Maine, he's an original Mainer. It is David Hess of winnersandwhiners.com. David Hess, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing good. Watched some of the WNBA draft last night. I did a preview on it, and I actually had the top four nailed as far as their position, but after that, it all went downhill.
Did you make a little money there on the first 4 picks, buddy? Did you get?
Well, I did play a prop. I had 2 Oregon players drafted in the first 5. It was at like minus 140, so I said that was a slam dunk, and they were.
I actually had the same prop locally for that. Well, because from every mock draft, the point was that there were 2 Oregon people who were either going to go 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, and then the next Oregon person was supposed to go around 8 or 9. So 140 seemed like a treat.
Would this have been the year that Oregon won the national championship?
They would definitely have been the favorites.
Yeah, they were strong.
Where were they ranked when everything stopped?
I believe they would have been a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, I think.
Okay, so they were top 4 in the nation as it stood.
I believe so.
Okay. All right. There you go. So, yeah, it's our new normal, everybody. A big Friday night consists of the eating challenge and the WNBA draft.
Did you watch the eating challenge?
Into that. No, I couldn't. Was it on YouTube?
Yeah, they were streaming it on YouTube.
You know, I didn't even think. I don't think of YouTube as streaming anymore. I don't know. I got to readjust my mindset now because
I got to teach you about technology. That's my fault.
Yeah, I know. I checked
one of these days.
I do have YouTube TV, and I checked my YouTube TV listings, and it wasn't there. I thought
I have that also.
I thought the Deuce might have covered it or something, but
well, one brief thing to actually cover with the WNBA draft. I actually want to give them a quick acknowledgement for what they did regarding honoring all the victims of that helicopter crash earlier on. Before they actually started the regular draft, they had some honorary draft picks and ended up taking Gigi Bryant, for example, and some of the other people that ended up passing away. So I thought that was very well done. So I give them
cool. That's cool, man. I don't know about you guys. The Kobe helicopter crash seems like about 4 years ago.
It does.
Yeah, it does seem a while ago.
It just and it seems like the Chiefs won the world championship a long time ago as well. So yeah, that's very, very weird time. So let's kind of tip our cap towards a return to normalcy as we take a look at the MLB. We've talked about it the past week about when, where, and if the MLB will come back. We are progressing as if it will be a relatively normal season. We have talked about a number of options, including the All Arizona option, the Split Grapefruit League, and Cactus League option. And yeah, so we just don't know, but we are going to give win totals. We are going to proceed as if it will be a quote unquote normal season with teams playing in their home parks, albeit perhaps with no fans. So let's go to the AL West and start at the very top. You know them, you love them. You keep the rhythm on beating on the trash cans. It is the Houston Astros. Houston Astros last year finished 107-55. They are due, apparently, according to the line, for a 10-game regression, as the number on them is now 97, with that is the Caesars Palace pre-virus number on the full 162-game season. And we have them at DraftKings, the percentage at 58.5. That is quite a core they have there with Altuve, Correa, Bregman, Springer, a pitching staff led by Verlander. Dave, are they going to keep it running here? Or are they going to spend their time just running to first base after getting plunked?
Yeah, the Astros are the one team that I seem to have the most problem with in figuring things out here. I mean, you could look at it one way. Pitchers are going to hit their batters a lot, I'm sure, or at least throw at them. But could Houston come out and say, we didn't need to cheat and just blow everybody away? I don't think they're going to blow everybody away. They lost Garrett Cole. I mean, they have still one of the best rotations in baseball. Well, at least the top three, with Verlander,
Right.
Greinke, and McCullers. The bullpen is also strong, and their lineup is powerful. You got Josh Reddick hitting eighth. I mean, that tells you something about their, how strong their lineup is. Um, but having said all that, I just think we're going to see a regression from them this year. They have a new coaching staff, and teams are going to be out to get them. Whether it's hitting them or just playing their A+ game. I think they're going to win the division, but I don't think they're going to hit over 97 wins. I don't think they're going to top that win total.
Yeah, Scott, Dave touched on it briefly there. They do have a couple questions in this lineup. Starting with Josh Reddick hitting eighth, and he actually has not played very well. He's tailed off combined OPS of 723 over the last two seasons. They do have Kyle Tucker ready to go. He is a top 20 prospect over the last 3 years. Only got 131 at bats, but they like what they see with him. They've also looking at having a full season of Yordan Alvarez as the designated hitter. So they've got a couple questions there. They should be able to cover those holes. I'm a little more worried, frankly, Scott, about this pitching staff. They've got Greinke, they've got Verlander. Sure, those guys are a pair of 38-year-olds, but they seem to be timeless so far. But after that, I don't know. They're counting on a big bounce back year from Lance McCullers, your Creedy, and then we kind of spit for the crack from there. What do you think about this staff?
I think that this number is going to be very tough. In terms of the pitching staff, to address your question, I agree with you. I think after the first two, it completely tails off. McCullers, I used to be a big fan of just based on his stuff, but he had some injury issues. They brought him out of the bullpen. Now they're going to throw him back into the starting rotation. I wouldn't be surprised to see him struggle now that he's going to be pitching 5 innings minimum as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 out of the pen like he did over the past year or so. So I think he could struggle going back to the starting lineup, starting rotation full time. Other than that, don't really like anybody else in the rotation. Your Keaty's okay, I'd say. I don't think he's really amazing by any means, so I definitely think that the rotation leaves a lot to be desired. Of course, the lineup's going to be really good. Not much has changed, I'd say. They still kept the main core still very good. The team should definitely still win 90-plus games, 95 potentially plus games. But at the end of the day, Dusty Baker as the manager, I really don't think is a good fit. I think that was mostly just as a way to try to get a veteran into the clubhouse during this time of turmoil to try to right the ship. I'm not a big Dusty Baker guy. He tends to run teams into the ground just because the way that I would compare him in baseball, he's basically the Tom Thibodeau of baseball, where he will just give his starting pitchers endless innings until their arms fall off and then hope it all works out. And that's kind of why both their teams underachieve in the playoffs. If you think about it, I wouldn't be surprised to see Verlander and Greinke pitch a ton of innings this season, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them potentially start to fatigue down the stretch, which could lead to some issues. I do think they're going to regress. I think this number is actually a bit too high at 97. I think they'll win the division, but I think they'll finish somewhere around 94 to 95. So for me, I'd have a slight lean to the under.
Yeah, 97 is still 32 games over 500, and that seems like a bit of a stretch with you've got, especially when you've got a division where at least 2 of the teams seem to have made pretty good improvements. So we'll see what happens. I've got you as the under there. I'm going to lean towards the under as well. Dave, what's you're officially on the under there? You think?
Yeah, on the under.
All right. So we've started off with a rare consensus here on the Houston Astros. You guys both have them winning the division, however, still?
Yes.
Yeah, they're just the class. They're so much better than everyone else in the division. But of course, that's not saying much. Now, just a quick question: do both of you have any thoughts on Dusty Baker? Are any of you as low as me, or what do you think of this?
Well, for me, Dusty Baker they needed somebody that was completely clean, that had nothing to do with the prior regimes, with the prior shenanigans that were going on there. If I had to have Dusty Baker, I'd want him on a team full of veterans. He seems to do better with veterans in a clubhouse that already has some leaders in place. I think he's more of a facilitator as opposed to a leader and innovator. He's 70, so obviously he's going to be old school because that's what he went to. He went to old schools. Dave, how do you feel about Dusty Baker? That's a great question, Scott.
Yeah, I think he's gonna do well. But I also don't think that the Astros need a whole lot of. I mean, they have a talented lineup from top to bottom. I don't think he's gonna have to make a lot of tough decisions. So I don't think it's gonna hurt them as much. I mean, but I still see them winning the division. I think he's gonna do enough for them to win the division.
Yeah, he's kind of a just push play type manager. If you started seeing injuries, if players underperform, if players struggle, the bullpen pieces don't quite come together, there could be some challenges for Dusty Baker indeed. So, and let's talk about some of the challengers, as quote unquote, to the Astros for this division title. Starting with the Athletics. Athletics had a nice season last year. Another one of these teams that are very quietly good, under the radar. They don't get a lot of pub because they play on the West Coast, and they don't get a lot of pub because they're always second in the division. But the A's went 97-65. There's your 32 games over 500. They are apparently due for regression as well this year. 89.5 is their number. 55% as they've been pegged as overachievers in 2018. You know what? I like this team. I really do. I don't know if this is their year, but man, they've got a great young pitching staff. They've got their top four starters. None of them are over 28 years old. They are led by the veteran Sean Manaea, ex-Royal. Frankie Montas is 27. AJ Puck, flamethrower, is 24, and Jesus Luzardo is 22. These guys, especially the back end of that rotation, they throw hard. They throw strikes. They have an unbelievable defense. They have the best defense in franchise history, anchored by perhaps the best baseman outside of Colorado in Matt Chapman. They got Marcus Semien, Matt Olson at first. All these guys can field, and all these guys can bop. They all have the potential to hit 30 home runs. Scott, tell me where the holes are in this A's squad.
Well, I think that there are a couple of holes, not really that major, but I think that it's definitely worth mentioning. Similar to the Astros, I don't really like the back end of their rotation. I think it does leave a lot to be desired. I am a fan of Fiers, and I do like Manaea, who ended up missing a decent portion of the season last year. Other than that, though, they got Montas, who's okay, I'd say. And then you kind of got some unknowns finishing up the rotation, who I'm not exactly fully sold on, especially after they lost Brett Anderson, and he's no longer going to be there. So they're going to have to piece some stuff together at the back end of the rotation. Other than that, though, there are some questions at second base, which is a bit concerning, as they're going to most likely be relying on Franklin Barreto at the second base spot. Doesn't have a big track record, and whatever he has shown isn't exactly great. He's only 24, but he is batting a career 189 batting average against major league pitching. So you do have to wonder about the second base position. Other than that, though, I mean, I like this team. I mentioned them in the overview video that I thought they had a potential sleeper value to win the World Series. Are they going to win it? No, but I think they're going to make the playoffs again. The bullpen's pretty good compared to the other teams in the division. The rotation is, I mentioned the first three are decent. Fiers and Manaea are a pretty good 1-2 punch, but I'm not sold on the back end. And I like the bullpen. Liam Hendricks has proven that he's a pretty good closer, so I do like their ability to shut the door on teams late in the game. But the one thing I know about the A's is that they find ways to win games, and they definitely have a very, I'm trying to think of the way to describe this. They're just a very smart team. I just think they're well managed. I think they make the right moves. They're willing to do things that other teams aren't with regard to bunting, maybe stealing bases, something like that. I just like the way that this team is wired, and I think this team should win somewhere in the 90s. I think they'll probably get a wild card spot. So for me, I actually like Oakland. Do I think they're going to win the division? No, but I think they'll be competitive, and I think they will end up making the playoffs. So for me, I'd lean to the over.
You know, Dave, the key to this Oakland squad seems to be getting off to a decent start. They have played fantastic baseball for the last 2/3 of the season, the last couple of years. In 2018, they went to 63-29 from June 16th on. Last year, they went 60-29. Both of those over winning over 2/3 of their games. Both of those marks were the best in baseball over that period of time. Davey, anyway, these guys can get off to a good start. I mean, they do have a lot of guys that are healthy again. Manaya's healthy, Puck's healthy, Chris Davis, Ramon Laureano, right, Stephen Piscotty. These guys are all healthy. They battled through injuries last year. Can we get the A's off to a good start? And if they can they compete for that division title?
I think the A's are going to compete for the division title. I like the Astros to win it, but it's not going to be a cakewalk. They're they're coming back to the pack a little bit this year. The Astros are. So I feel that both the A's and the Angels have a shot at making the race close. We'll get to the Angels in a second, obviously. I like the rotation, Fires, Manaya, and Montas at the top three. And, the back end is a little iffy, but as you said, they throw hard. They didn't do a whole lot to try and upgrade, the offense, but they don't need to. They had 7 players that hit 20 or more home runs last year. I mean, if it's not broke, don't, if it
ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I got you.
The one issue that they may have is depth. They lost some depth in the pitching with Tanner Roark, Homer Bailey, and Brett Anderson. Josh Fegley, he was a pretty solid, backup catcher behind home plate, and they also traded away Jurickson Profar. So they have some issues with depth, but if they stay healthy, I think they're going to take the over on their win total, but I don't think that they're going to come, be able to overtake the Astros in the long run.
Well, one thing, I did the math, and I found out that with the 55%, assuming that there's a 162-game season, that's roughly a win total of 89.1. So I guess the question you have to ask is, do you think this Oakland team is good enough to win 90 games? I think they are.
Yes, yeah. They did, and they did last year. I think they did a year before. I think they can win 90 games again. Dave?
Dave,
yes,
you have any thoughts on? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think that they're going to win 90 games also.
All right, very good. I think so. We are once again in consensus with the A's going over the 89.5 and getting close, maybe a little closer this season to the Astros, but not quite getting there yet. Now, we talked about a couple teams that have definitely improved in that division, and one of them is the Texas Rangers. Texas Rangers, very versatile team. Not always the best pitching team. They've got they've got some outfielders. All the outfielders have played the infield. So, but they've got they've got a break. They had Willie Calhoun had a fractured jaw. He wasn't going to be able to start the season, but now with the delay of the season, they will have their outfield pretty much intact. It will be it should be an interesting season for the Rangers. We made a little bit of money off the Rangers last year, got some good prices on them. And, this is kind of a sneaky good rotation. They've got Mike Minor, Lance Lynn, Corey Kluber, Kyle Gibson, Jordan Lyles, a lot of guys who have been good pitchers at one point or another in their career. Dave, tell me about the Rangers. What do you think, buddy? 78-84 last year, 78.5 is their number, 47.5%. Can this team play 500 baseball?
I don't think so. I'm looking at the Rangers, and one thing we got to remember, and this is the perfect team to touch on this, is if it doesn't look like these teams are going to be playing in their home fields. They're going to be playing in either Arizona or Florida. The Rangers last year were third in the league in offense at home at 5.60 runs per game, but 25th in the league on the road. Their home field gives them a huge advantage, especially in offense, and they have a good offense. And it's not going to be enough. I don't think, if they're not playing in that home park. I mean, there's a big discrepancy in their offense from home and away.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The pitching will improve, though. They don't pitch well at home either because of their park. But I just don't think that the offense is going to do enough away from home for them to get over the total.
So. Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, course, they were moving out of Globe Life Field this year, moving into the new stadium with a retractable roof. Scott, is that going to take away that home field advantage for those guys that just like Joey Gallo, et cetera, that just kind of sit back and wait for the fat one to put over the fence? Is the fact that it's going to be a retractable roof and going to be playing more in a more temperate climate, I guess you would say, is that going to hinder these Texas Rangers?
Well, the truth is it's possible. Nobody really knows because they barely played any spring training games, or they barely played in the actual new arena because of the fact that you've had this whole outbreak and everything like that. Now, people thought that Minnesota's a good example where people thought, maybe things will change when they switch to Target Field and they set the MLB record for most home runs in a single season. So I'm not just going to immediately say that it's either going to help or hurt. I feel like that's just pure speculation. You kind of got to wait to see what happens, which is a problem if you're going to be betting preseason props. For me, though, the number with the percentage at 47.5 is set up roughly at 76.95 wins. So if they win 77 games, that means that you win. And they ended up having exactly 78 last year as they finished 78 and 84. I do agree that they tend to have a very solid home field advantage, which does contribute to some success. But no teams are going to be having home field, or most teams, I should say, assuming that they end up going through with the Arizona plan. But for me, I'm actually going to lean to the over here. I like the rotation. I mean, I actually think that this team has one of the most underrated rotations in all of baseball if you just go from 1 to 5. Now, Kluber's a question mark because he is coming in off of an arm injury, and hopefully he's going to be the same guy. But if you roam through the rotation, you're looking at Corey Kluber and Mike Minor as a 1-2 punch. That's pretty good. Number 3, you got Lance Lynn, pretty viable option at number 3, veteran. You got Kyle Gibson, who they got from Minnesota, who I've never really been the biggest fan of, but he is still a veteran once again, decent number 4. And you got Jordan Lyles, who has been decent in the last couple of seasons at the number 5. I actually like the rotation. I think the rotation's pretty good. This team won 78 games with Mike Minor as the race, and they added Kluber. And assuming Kluber is anywhere near where he used to be, and he's not a complete shell of his former self, I have to lean to the over because this team won 78 games last year. The lineup is, I'd say, mediocre. I don't think the lineup is great by any means, but I actually really like the starting rotation. I think that this starting rotation could give this team enough leads that they could end up winning around 81 games, 82 games, maybe even more in the upcoming season. So for me, I'm actually going to disagree with Dave a little bit, and I'm going to take the over.
I like the over. I like the over there as well. They've got some boppers on this team. They've got Joey Gallo who's going to be healthy this season. Of course, Shin-Soo Choo, roughing it door. They've got some guys that can hit the baseball.
They also got Todd Frazier.
They got Todd Frazier, absolutely, and they've got a kid that named Isaiah Kiner Falefa that they're going to try to get into the lineup to play the infield. He's kind of a third baseman type of guy. Although he can play a little bit of shortstop. And they'll most likely give Todd Frazier some reps at first base. So I think there's some power. I think there's some bop in this lineup. And you got to remember that pitching staff last year. A lot of those guys were hurt for most of the season. They had swingman Jesse Chavez plugged in the rotation. He did very well to start, but he kind of ran out of gas down the stretch. So having 5 legitimate MLB starters, I think is going to really benefit this team. Again, you don't know where they're going to play, but I'm with Scott. I lean towards the over. It's not a massive bet, but I think 81-82 is right in the wheelhouse for this Rangers team.
Well, one thing to mention, though, can we agree, though, that this bullpen on paper looks like an absolute disaster?
It's not the best. It is not the best. After Chavez, who's a very serviceable guy down there in the pen, they're not fantastic. Dave, what do you think?
Clark's okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that also.
Yeah.
I don't see the bullpen, and I mean, they may not get as much work because, as you guys have stated, they do have a better pitching staff, but still, I don't see the bullpen as being a definite strength of this team.
Well, let's talk about one of the most dynamic teams in the division as far as making moves go. And this is a team we talked about it yesterday with a we talked about or was it the day before when one of the teams had a 12 was slated to win 12 and a half more games.
It was the White Sox.
Right, you're right. Yeah, the White Sox. So that was we thought that was quite a stretch. And now we've got a team that is slated to win 13 and a half more games, and that is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I guess they're just the Los Angeles Angels now. But they finished a disappointing 72 and 90 last season, and they have been pegged at 85 and a half. That is a 13 and a half game improvement at 52 and a half on DraftKings. Scott, the Angels, they have been underachievers here for most of this decade. They've made the postseason just one time since the best player in baseball, Mike Trout, joined that team in 2011. That is a tragedy right there. They brought in Joe Madden. They brought in Anthony Rendon, 7 years, $245 million. They tried to upgrade that pitching staff, but they missed out on Cole and Strasburg, Zach Wheeler. They did make some smaller, kind of under-the-radar moves. They brought in Dylan Bundy, and from Baltimore, they brought in Matt Andriese. They signed Julio Teheran from Atlanta. Brought in Jason Castro to catch. So, this is a team that they're looking for big things. And Scott, do you see it on the horizon? Where do you see these Angels at the end of the season? By the way, we were talking about the Pujols contract last year, or yesterday rather. He will be in the last year. He did make it all 10 years of his 10-year, $240 million deal. So, obviously, based on results as far as getting to the playoffs, and of course, I would be remiss as a Kansas City Royals fan to not mention the one time that they did make the playoffs in 2014. They were, swept by that small market flyover to the Kansas City Royals squad. So the one time they did make the playoffs, they had absolutely zero success. They won 0 playoff games. So, Scott, tell me about these Angels.
Under. No, but to actually break down the Angels here, congrats on them to finally getting through the Pujols contract. I'm proud of them. They might actually be able to be fully competitive next year when they have that much cap space left over because of the fact that, Pujols will no longer be on the books. For me, you also didn't mention for the rotation, Shohei Ohtani is expected to rejoin the rotation after only being a position player last year. The issue was injuries. Trout got injured, missed about the last month. Ohtani got injured. And they also had a surprising outbreak season by Tommy La Stella, and then he also got injured. So they really lost a lot of key pieces for that lineup. For me, though, this total's too high. I got to take the under here. I understand that they got Rendon, and Rendon's a very solid player. But at the end of the day, I don't really like the pitching staff. I know that Ohtani has the stuff to be very good, but he pitched about, a quarter of a season and then had Tommy John surgery.
Right.
I'm not going to immediately assume that, we're going to throw him back out there and he's suddenly going to figure out how to work it for an 162-game season. I don't see that. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get injured again. I think it's kind of stupid that the Angels are throwing him back into the rotation, in my honest opinion. Because if you're in the NL, then that's where he'd be great for, because he can hit and he could pitch. If he's a hitter who can also pitch in the AL, you have a DH anyway. So what's the point? That's just my thought process on that. I don't really get it. I think he'd have more value in the National League. But that's my thoughts on Ohtani. Other than that, they got Andrew Heaney. Okay. I guess. You had Julio Teheran, who's pretty streaky. He's probably one of the streakiest pitchers in all of baseball. But when he's good, he's very good. You got Griffin Koenig. Okay, I guess. And you got Dylan Bundy, who was the ace of the Orioles staff. And I think either one of us could be the ace of the Orioles staff. So I don't really know what that means. Bundy's okay. Not really that great. Do I like anybody in the bullpen? No. Do I trust Hansel Robles closing games for my team? Absolutely not. I think that could turn really ugly. So for me, I know they got a decent lineup on paper with Mike Trout. You got Simmons, Rendon, Upton, Ohtani, La Stella. Pujols by name, but I think he's pretty much a lost cause at this point. For me, I know Madden is creative and he tends to tinker with the lineups and he tries to be the smartest guy in the room. I don't think it's going to work out too well. I think this Angels team is going to underachieve, and I think they definitely need better bullpen arms and better starting rotation consistency. So I think they're going to be around 500. I think this win total jump is too high, and for that reason, I'm going to take the under.
All right, Dave. Yeah, they are counting on a lot of things falling exactly right. Scott touched on it briefly. Tommy La Stella really had a nice season last year. So did David Fletcher. They're counting on those guys to continue their upward trajectory. But at the end of the day, I'm with Scott. I don't love this rotation. they did have Ohtani slated to come back not till mid-May. Of course, that's we're going to make that one no problem. So he will be most likely be part of this rotation to start the season. But he's only going to be part of the rotation, sort of. They've said that he's only going to pitch once a week, so he won't be a true every fifth day kind of situation when the days off start going away there towards the middle of the season. And of course, with the way this season is going to have to be compressed, the days off will likely be even fewer and farther between. At the end of the day, I just don't think they have enough horses on that pitching staff to take care of business. Dave, how are you feeling about these Angels?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. The 86, this is a big jump for, and they are putting a lot on Shohei Ohtani coming back to the starting lineup. But I mean, Dylan Bundy, come on, he was what, 6-11 last year, and the ace of the Orioles. God, I almost said Ravens.
That's correct.
Matt Andriese, he could be a help, but the pitching staff is not good at all. Yes, they improved the offense with the addition of Rendon. And Joe Madden is a hell of a coach. I mean, he's just he will find a way to eke out a few wins that they shouldn't have. But I don't think that they can improve on the 72 wins that they have. I mean, they will improve on the 72 wins they had last year, but they will not improve it by 13 or 14 games. So I'm taking the under as well. And the big reason is, as you guys have stated, it's that rotation. It just scares me. Dylan Bundy's the third starter projected. I mean, I just don't see it. And as you stated, Scott, with Shohei Ohtani, if he gets to the starting lineup again, they're not going to have as many off days as they had last year. So I just with a compressed schedule. So the bullpen is another issue. They're going to put some runs up on the board, but I don't think that they're going to have enough pitching to get over 86.5 wins.
Scott and I talked about the sweet spot for over betting, and I think we've got one right here. You've got a team that's got some serious offensive pop, and you have probably a below-average pitching staff. I think this is a prime candidate for especially first 5 overs. I think is a good play with these Angels until they prove me wrong. You guys?
Well, I think I actually might prefer the full game over first 5, even though the rotation isn't good. I don't trust anybody in this bullpen at all.
The rotation isn't good, and the bullpen is worse.
Yeah, I mean, I know Hansel Robles had a sub-4 ERA last year. He might actually be one of the worst closers in all of baseball, if you actually think about it. I know, of course, the bottom feeders like the Giants and the Orioles, they'll probably be worse. But in terms of a team that's projected to be over 500, Hansel Robles might actually be one of the worst closers of teams that are supposed to be competitive.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. I agree with that. It's just on general principles, I'm generally going to fade a team that's marked for a 13.5 game of improvement, and especially a team like the Angels that didn't do a significant upgrade at the starting pitching position, or really any pitching for that matter. I'm with the group here once again. Man, we've got a boring show so far today. I think we all agree that the Angels, well, they will be over 500. They will underachieve that number. And
two things for the record: I don't think the Angels will be over 500.
You don't even think they'll make it to 81?
I think they're going to win 77. I'd say somewhere around 77 to 80. I think they're going to go a little bit under for me. I hope I'm wrong, because I don't like rooting for injuries for players. This team's had injury issues for years. I'm not just going to suddenly assume that everybody, including La Stella, including Ohtani, even Trout, who's been banged up every now and then, I think one or more of them are going to get injured. Even Justin Upton has had injury issues in the past. Durability's been a question, and if we're really wondering if this team's going to go over 500, or maybe slightly, if everyone stays healthy, then if one of these people, if not more, get injured, this team can easily finish under. So I'm more skeptical on how durable this team is, which kind of brings me to one question that I wanted to open it up. I think it's irresponsible for the Angels to just throw Ohtani back into the rotation, as they might potentially, ruin his development or ruin whatever. I know they brought him in because he could also pitch, but in the AL, do you think they should be throwing him into the rotation off of Tommy John in these type of circumstances? I think it's kind of reckless.
Yeah, I'm was surprised that he was going to come back that fast. Like I said, he was slated for a mid-May return. I don't know when he went out. It seems like fairly early in the season. I'm not sure. Like, we're right at a year, I would guess, maybe 13 months. And that does seem a little soon, not only to get him back in there, semi full time, but to really count on him being able to be the same kind of pitcher that he was. Normally, it takes a full season after Tommy John surgery for that pitcher to return to some.
And that's a full season of time off. He was also an everyday position player, so I don't really know how that factors in with his rehab process. If he's still swinging a bat 4 times a game, I think that the way that they're handling it, I mean, it's of course a very unique circumstance where somebody can hit and pitch the way that he can. I just think the cons outweigh the pros. I think that Ohtani as a hitter is still very solid. And I think if you're going to potentially, I don't want to say jeopardize the rest of his career because that sounds extreme, but you're potentially jeopardizing the rest of his career because he can throw extremely fast. I don't really think it's worth it. That's just
Dave,
my opinion.
What do you think, Dave?
This is going to be a unique year for all teams, and I think that he may be ready to come back, but I wouldn't try it this year. Let's get a full season where they're playing in their home parks, half the games, and there's not a whole lot of mystery around, an extra, a compressed schedule or whatever I should say. So this is not the year to bring him back. I think, if you're looking for the future and all, as you guys stated earlier, Pujols probably won't be on the roster next year, his massive contract at least. So they could be building for next year. So, let's put him back on the mound next year, not this year when there's so much unknown.
And I won't quite go that far. I would say I would like him to come back maybe All-Star break-ish, what normally would be the All-Star break, somewhere around the 1st of July, and then put him on a pitch count, maybe 40, 50 pitches a game, see how he does, see him build that arm strength up. And, that's still going to be a challenge for him to get that arm strength built back up to start the beginning of the season without a proper spring training. So, yeah, a lot of question marks with this team. And anytime you have a lot of question marks, a lot of times the answer is no. So I'm going to definitely fade this team. I do think they're right at about 500. I think they're around 80 to 82 victories. I think that's going to be where the Angels end up. So let's move on, because apparently there is a 5th team in this division. Who knew? It is the Seattle Mariners. Seattle Mariners finished 68-94 last season, and they have been slated to do exactly about the same thing. 67.5 is their total, 41%. I'll tell you what, Dave, I don't like this Seattle Mariners team this year, but I think this is going to be an up-and-coming team. I look for them to start making noise in about 2022. This is an incredibly young team. Dave, what do you think about the Mariners?
Yeah, they're clearly the worst team in the division. I don't think they're the worst team in the league. That's a couple of teams in the Central Division that might have something to say about that.
Easy. At least there's just one.
Hey, you guys won the Super Bowl last year, so
that's right. That's right, baby.
The pitching rotation isn't great. I mean, Marco Gonzalez, he is their ace, and he was the only pitcher that really showed anything last year. It was 16-13 on the year. I don't know, Kikuchi,
yeah.
He did not have a very good rookie season. And after that, Kendall Graveman could be an interesting pitcher for the team, and they do have Tajon Walker back.
Yeah.
And he, after spending a couple of years in Arizona, so the pitching staff isn't great. The offense isn't spectacular. They've got some pop in it. Kyle Seager, Evan White, J.P. Crawford. They got some speed too. But I can't see them getting over their total. What's it, like 67?
67.5 is what I have.
Yeah. I can't see them getting over their total. I mean, the one player that they did get rid of was King Felix, but that's no biggie. He was pretty much court jester Felix the last few years.
Right.
So I they're up and coming, as you said. They have a lot of young talent on their team, and it's just unproven talent at this point. With the exception of Seager and Gonzalez. But other than that, this is a team that's going to be lucky to win, 65 games this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board that this is, like I said, a very, very young team. Kyle Seager is the old man on this team. He's the only starter over 30. He's 32 there. Scott, Mariners did something interesting. They signed Evan White, 2017 first rounder. They're going to let him play this year. He's never had an at-bat in the major leagues. They signed him to a 6-year, $24 million deal with a couple of options that could bring it to 55. Is that going to be the trend of the future with teams locking up these guys earlier and earlier without proving themselves at the big league level?
I think it's definitely likely. Now, it also depends on what type of team what type of team it is from a market perspective. For the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, you're just going to pay millions of dollars to people anyway. If you're the Royals or a Seattle or somebody else who isn't really known historically for getting these high-profile, high-priced free agents, you might have to get creative with how exactly you're going to evaluate talent. And I think Oakland's another great example, and how they tend to try to do stuff in-house, maybe sign an out-of-the-country prospect every now and then, like a Yoenis Cespedes, who they think can be this up-and-comer superstar, and then you just throw them out there and then see what happens. I mean, the question to ask is, what does Seattle really have to lose? And the answer is nothing, because nobody thinks they're going to be good anyway, and as you said, they might be good in a couple of years. So why wouldn't you see how good your prospect is? I mean, it's not like you have much, risk on the table. You're kind of just testing or evaluating talent on your roster. I think you could see it more frequently throughout the league. Do I think that these huge bankroll teams are going to suddenly do this? No. I think this is mostly a small market tool that I think will be used in the future.
Yeah, you're absolutely investing in the future because, of course, right out of the bat, you're paying these guys, I don't know what the major league minimum is now, somewhere around the $500,000, $600,000 mark. So you're paying these guys, 7 or 8 times what they could be making. But at the end of that contract, you're getting them on a much better deal. You don't have to go through arbitration with them. The Royals kind of did the same thing with Salvador Perez, where they locked him up after his first season to a multi-year deal and paid him, averaged a little under $2 million a year. In fact, it was such a bad contract that the Royals even felt bad about it and renegotiated and gave him more money after about 2 years into that. But that's something that I think you're absolutely right about the small market teams. This is a kind of a creative way to lock up their talent and not lose these guys, as they start to peak. These kids start to peak at 26, 27 years old, and now all of a sudden you can't afford to pay them anymore. So I think it's a creative way to do it. You're taking a little bit of a gamble that they are going to be successful. Now, with Perez, he had a season in the major leagues. You knew he was going to be something special. But with Evan White, we know he's a great defensive first baseman, but we really don't know if he can hit major league pitching. So we'll have to see how that goes, and then we'll have to see, which even perhaps more importantly, once the league gets a book on him, once they adjust, if he can make that adjustment. And that is what knocks out so many players after a hot start, is once the league adjusts, they cannot make the adjustment. They find out what their weak spots are, and they just grind and they just pound that spot until they're either ground into dust or they make the proper adjustments. So Scott, do you see these guys improving on their 68 and 94 season last year? Is there any hope for this Mariners team?
Improving, no. I mean, based on the current percentage of 41%, assuming a 162-game season, you're at 66.42 wins. You're rooting for 67 wins, so basically an identical season to last year. I don't see it. People forget that even though the Mariners ended up winning 68 games, they started the season 13-2.
Yeah, they're on.
So they ended up going 55-92 over the last ignoring the hot start. They went 55-92, and I think that they just got off to a hot start randomly before teams realized how bad they were, and they kind of
it was home runs. They set the record for the home runs in a game. They started the season with a bunch of home runs and more games in a row with a home run than any other team had ever done.
Yes, I remember betting a lot of overs on them earlier.
Right, exactly right.
I think the point is, though, that if you take out the 13-2, I'm going to describe that as an outlier. They went 55-92, which is projected to go under this total based on the roster last year. Did they improve that much this season? No. Now, we were talking about the rotation. They did lose Felix Hernandez, who is, I mean, a shell of himself is actually putting it lightly.
Yeah, he was
pretty much done at this point. But if you look at who else they have, you have Taijuan Walker, who's pitched in a combined he's pitched in 4 combined starts over the last 2 seasons due to injury. So you're relying on somebody who hasn't had more than 3 starts in a season in the last 2 years to be your number 3. I'm not exactly sold on that premise. I do like Marco Gonzalez, who is talented. Kikuchi was a disaster. There's no way to put it. They paid him a ton of money. They were hoping he would be an Iwakuma 2.0 kind of guy who was very good initially. He had some injury issues with the Mariners, but Iwakuma was solid, and Kikuchi was anything but that. He was terrible.
We made a lot of money fading him early.
Yeah, other than that, you have Justice Sheffield, former Yankee prospect, who's been pretty hit or miss in the minors. Started a bit last year. He had an ERA of 5.82 in his career, not great. And then you're looking at Graveman. I mean, when you're talking about upside on Kendall Graveman, I feel like that's kind of a perfect description of the team itself. The bullpen did get a little bit better, though. They did end up picking up Hirano from the Diamondbacks, who was supposed to be the closer. I actually kind of like Hirano. I think he is a decent relief pitcher with some pretty good stuff with Arizona. The rest of the bullpen, though, am I sold on Nestor Cortez, former Yankee, or Carl Edwards Jr.? No. I mean, not really. I don't think this team is very good. The lineup is also a joke. I know Mitch Haniger's okay. Evan White, nobody knows. Tom Murphy's okay as a catcher. Seager's good. Yeah, and Vogelbach is just a massive human being who can hit home runs and does pretty much nothing else. So, for me, I have to lean to the under. I think this team's going to be really bad. And we talked about this with the Orioles and with the Tigers. Let's just say Seattle is in the basement, where they probably should be, right around the trade deadline. And the Yankees or the Dodgers say, we'll give you 2 prospects for Marco Gonzalez. They're going to say no?
He gone.
That's what I'm saying. So if the thing that you have to keep in mind when it comes to over-unders for win totals, is your team going to buy or sell at the deadline? Because if you don't want a team with the over and you see them trade off all their best pieces because they know that it's the marathon, not a sprint, and they're more focused in 2022 and 2023 than they are now, I think if Marco Gonzalez, who has proven that he's a pretty decent starter in the league, and the Mariners get offered a couple prospects for him, kind of like Detroit with Matthew Boyd, how are they going to say no? And you don't want to be in a situation where they trade Gonzalez for some prospects and your number 1 starter is Kikuchi.
Right, yeah.
So for me, I have to lean to the under.
That's going to make a long second half of the season. Yeah, and that coupled with the fact that you have 4 pretty good quality teams in front of them in the division that they're going to have to play 76 games against total. It just seems like a stretch. Man, and they are starting so many youngsters. Malik Smith is the only one in the outfield that's going to be a non-rookie.
Can he hit, or is he only just good at running? He reminds me of Billy Hamilton.
Yeah, he's a kind of a Joey Gathright, Billy Hamilton kind of guy. And Haniger's out indefinitely. We'll have to see how he gets back. Just not a lot to like here. Dave, any rays of sunshine that you see for the Mariners?
Not a whole lot. They do have some young talent across the board, but it's just they don't have enough to be competitive in a division where it looks like most of the other teams in the division have really improved. Well, with the exception of the Astros, I think they digressed a little bit, but they were so far away, ahead of the curve that it's not going to affect them. But I just feel that that the Mariners don't have a whole lot of bright spots on their team.
Nope, not yet. It's just like I said. I think they're 2 years away. I think it could be a fun bunch if these guys pan out to be quality players, like a lot of people think they will be. I think they could be a fun bunch to watch in a couple of years. But I think it's going to be ugly baseball with people up in Seattle looking at their watches and counting the days until a football season is
Well,
back.
I know that we've spent some time talking about sorry to just segue for a second. I know that we spent some time talking about teams and how we would approach betting them on a game-to-game basis. It's never a good sign when the best bet against any team's given game is the opposing team's run total. That's probably what I'm looking at for the Mariners. This team can't pitch, and I can't take the over because this team can't hit. So I don't really know how to play this team besides taking the opposing team total over and the Mariners team total under. I don't know how else I'm supposed to look at this team.
Yeah, it's probably going to be. You're probably going to get the value there. I think. Yeah, playing that team over 5.5, wherever they end up being for the game, probably going to be a pretty solid play. So, all right. Once again, I think we're kind of in agreement there now. So, do we think they regress a little bit? Do they not get to 68, 67? Scott, I know you.
I think they're at 62, 63 tops.
Dave, are you in the same boat?
Yeah, I'm in the lower 60s as well for them.
Yeah, it's hard to look at this team and figure out where those wins are going to come from, especially, because the first thing you have to look at is almost half the games are played within the division, and that is a tough division, not counting the Mariners. So,
well, one more thing, sorry. Just one thing to talk about briefly. I know that the value might be on Seattle, but if you're looking at these games, and I know that it's baseball, how many games is Seattle even going to be favored in?
Oh,
That's the problem. I mean, you're looking at 60-something games. They're not. I don't even know if they're going to be favored for 50-something games over the course of the season.
No, you're looking at the only possibilities would be the Tigers, the Orioles, and perhaps the Royals, depending on the pitching matchup.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to equal to 60. So I know that I'm just I'm teasing a little bit based on the fact that, of course, money lines aren't an automatic indicator of wins. But you might just be better off betting on a game-to-game basis, maybe only when Marco Gonzalez pitches, kind of like a Matt Boyd situation from last year with Detroit, because this team is going to have to win as an underdog at least 40 to 50 times if they're going to go over.
Right. Yeah.
So that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and that's not bad. And I think, I would say anytime you can catch the opposing team at less than minus 200. I think you have to take a long look at betting against the Mariners. Minus 200, there's really no value there. That puts them around 50. That puts them at 54 wins. So they're going to be a little better than that. But I think anything in the 180 or better range, I think that's going to have to be pretty much an auto play on the opposition for the Seattle Mariners. Even with Marco Gonzalez on the mound, I just don't think the offense or the bullpen is going to be able to pick him up enough. I think you fade this team all year until proven otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the low 60s. You sound like you're potentially in the high 50 range. What are your thoughts on it, Scott?
Yeah, I think 60 is going to be a great season for this team. I think they have the potential to fall far, far off the cliff here. It's going to be, they're rebuilding. They've torn it down. And right now they've got the foundation laid, but they don't even have the first floor on yet. So I think it's going to be a 2 or 3 year process here, and we are at basically year zero in the situation. I don't think they get anywhere near 68. I don't think they sniffed last year's record because you brought up a good point about that start, and I'd forgotten about that start. And 3 of those games came against the Royals. And they swept the Royals early in the season and just mashed the ball. So without that start, you're looking at a team that's right around 60 wins. And
they were 55 and 92.
I think that's going to be, so if they start 500 basically, you're at around 60, 61, and I think that's going to be the situation with this team as well. All right, so let's recap here, everybody, in case you joined us late, or let's be honest, it's YouTube in case you fast forwarded to this part. We all agree that the Astros will once again be at the top of the pile there, but we don't think they're going to get that total of 97. They won 107 last year. By the way, according to the commissioner's report, they did not cheat last year. So I'm just throwing it out there that's what Manfred's report said. So it's possible this team is just really good.
Is it a coincidence that they didn't cheat and they didn't win the World Series at the same time? Is that a coincidence?
Although, the counterpoint to that would be Altuve and it hitting his home run off of Aroldis Chapman.
Oh, with the shirt situation? Yeah.
Yeah.
I always react that way when I hit a walk-off home run in games. I
don't know how you could say they absolutely did not cheat and then look at that whole situation with Altuve just crushing that ball from Aroldis Chapman and then you having the shirt where they don't tear off his shirt to show his bad tattoo as he came down the third base line. So we'll see what happens with the Astros. But we all agree that they're a pretty good team, but we don't think they're going to make the 97. We do think they're probably going to be in the 92 to 95 range, and that will be enough to win the West. We all agree that the Athletics will go over the 89.5, finish second, most likely once again find themselves in a one-game wild card playoff at the end of the season. The Rangers, we are all have a slight lean towards the over there. Am I right, guys?
Dave's leading.
Yeah, I took the under.
Dave got the under with the Rangers. Scott, you and I have a lean towards around 80, 81, around a 500 team. Dave is not as impressed with that team, has no confidence in their day-to-day lineup. And the Angels, we think that is going to be a mountain that's a little too tall to climb with a 13.5 game improvement going from 72 to 85.5. I think we all like the under there. Again, another team we slate right around 500. Although, didn't one of you guys say they'll be below 500?
I did. I said they'd win probably around 78 to 80 games.
Okay, so we all agree they go under the total and do not make the playoffs as well. And when it comes to the Mariners, we all think that is the whatever the opposite of the pick to click is. They are going to lose many games. It's possible they could be a 100-loss team. I think.
You have a best bet on this division?
What's that?
You have a best bet on this division, or a
best bet on this division? My favorite bet is probably going to be, man, that's it. It's not quite as easy as the other divisions were. I'll tell you that. I'm going to go with the Athletics over 89.5. That's probably my favorite play. What about you, Scott?
I was thinking about the A's also, but the more that we talk about it, I kind of love Seattle under.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I might even replace that guess.
I mean, the other four teams are just so much better. We're talking about how the Angels, in my opinion, might end up in fourth in the division, or maybe the Rangers. They're both, in my opinion, going to be hovering around 500. So the drop-off in wins from them to the Mariners is ridiculous. They're clearly the worst team, and wins got to come from somewhere. So for me, I think all these teams are just going to gang up on Seattle.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad call. What about you, Dave? What's your favorite play of the?
Yep, I'm with you guys. I think because I do like the Angels to flirt with their win total, but I don't think they're gonna hit it. So the best pick is the Seattle under.
All right, yeah, I think we'll make that a consensus. I agree with you. The more I think about it, I think that's more of a sure thing. I'd rather count on Seattle to suck than I will count on the A's to kind of overachieve there once again. So very good, guys. That wraps up the major leagues, and it's been a fun week. It's part of this is I feel like part of what we're doing is we're just trying to keep some sense of normalcy in a world where almost nothing is normal right now. We talk about it as the baseball season. We look with an eye towards, with an optimistic eye towards getting that season started, playing some games. We don't know where they're going to play. We don't know when they're going to play, but I think that helps. I know it helps. I know it helps my psyche, and I hope it helps some other folks out there where we can just kind of be a touchstone of when we get back to normal. So I thank you guys for joining, being a part of that, and helping out there. So. As always, David, great job. Appreciate you joining us. What are you working on over there at Winners and Winers? I know you and I are going to be doing a special show here coming up. Dave, you want to tell them about that?
Yeah, in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a wrestling podcast on the Money in the Bank pay-per-view for WWE. So kind of looking forward to that. I gave you plenty of time to read up on it.
Yeah, I love the Money in the Bank. I even watched a little I watched a little wrestling last night to start to, I did watch WrestleMania, and I'm a casual fan, so I know enough that I can keep things going, but you are the absolute expert there. I know you've got some articles over there, and that should be a lot of fun. Dave, what other articles you got over there that you want?
Today I'm going to be working on a post WNBA draft article.
Very good.
So, coming next week, I'm going to do a full WNBA draft preview. And excellent. We got golf coming up soon, hopefully.
Wait, did you just say WNBA?
WNBA.
Now, that's a sport I would watch. Absolutely. As they go into the drive, they just like throw them into the turnbuckle.
Yep.
I would watch that sport completely. Very, very good. So look for WNBA stuff. And I know a lot of people poo-poo the WNBA, and it's not the same, whatever. But from a betting standpoint, there is a lot of value in the WNBA. I know a lot of our writers really do a good job, and a lot of them make some serious money playing the WNBA. So do not discount the WNBA because they're not doing high-flying dunks, and they don't play with the ferocity that the men play or whatever. It's a fun game to watch. They play very, very good fundamental basketball, and it's a very different situation. But if you want to see somebody that plays basketball the way it was quote unquote intended to be played, the way it was designed, watch the WNBA because a lot of stress on fundamentals and very, very good basketball players. Scott, go ahead.
That Allie Quigley, man, she is a hell of a shooter.
See,
I watched her in the little tournament, the horse tournament that the NBA and WNBA had.
She beat Chris Paul in the first round.
Sorry?
Quigley, she beat Chris Paul in the first round of that.
Yeah, I picked that one actually because I did an article on that one. I went 3-1 in first round, but I had Zach LaVine winning it all, and he came up short in the finals. So overall, I went 5-2 in the tournament. So I was pretty happy about that.
Not bad at all. Scott, what are you working on over there at Winners and Winers? I know you're always putting pieces out. What are you working on? What do you got going on? Anything?
Well, I just put up the quarantine eating challenge the other day. So if you want to check that out, you still can. It was just the first round yesterday for qualifying. You could.
What are we moving on to, Scott? Yesterday was 2 pounds of bologna. Are we eating today? Is it every day? How does that work?
I believe it's almost every other day. So the next day will be on the 19th. So tomorrow, and I believe they're eating 48 Oreos and half a gallon of milk.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
That sounds very random. It's one of those things that sounds so random that it has to be true.
Is it too late to get in?
You see, I feel like you could eat along and make believe you're a part of the competition, but I don't think they're going to give you any recognition for it on the board.
Do a live video where I'm also eating Oreos. Man, I do love some Oreos. I think I told you, Scott, about my son. He was one of these guys that would watch the hot dog challenge and watch some guys, eat 20, 30, 40 hot dogs and go, I could do that. And he actually entered a contest, and I think he struggled. I think he ended up at 8 or 9 in 10 minutes, and it about killed him. So what these guys are doing, and I've seen him eat some impressive things. I've seen him eat, pound burgers and fries, and so he's not a light eater as you might guess with a son of mine. But that is an incredible. If you call it a sport, eating 70 plus hot dogs in 10 minutes is one of the most incredible sporting achievements I've ever seen in my life. I have to say.
Is that on your Mount Rushmore of sport? You got Wilt Chamberlain 100 points. You got a bunch of other stuff. Joey Chestnut 70 hot dogs in 10 minutes.
If it's a sport, it has to be. Because that's something that all of us do. Every one of us eat. Most of us have played Little League baseball or football, and by the time that you couldn't do that anymore. The game passed you by. But everybody eats. Everybody has a big appetite. Everybody thinks they can eat. And to see somebody so head and shoulders above what us mere mortals can do, I think you put it on the Mount Rushmore of sporting achievements. Go ahead and at me. I don't care. Yes.
How do you even practice for that?
Right. I mean, when do you eat again? If you eat 70 hot dogs, what's your next meal? Obviously, you're not having dinner. I'm a little peckish. Not to be indelicate, but do these guys immediately, as soon as the cameras are off and they're done, do they get rid of that?
It's possible. I mean, what I would assume based on nature is after they have that huge meal, they hibernate for about 2-3 months. That would be my thought.
I know I would.
Yeah.
You'd see me again. If I was eating July 4th, you'd see me again about Labor Day. I would not be out of my shell. And of course, they don't call it vomiting in the world in Major League Eating. What do they call it, Dave? Do you know?
I don't know.
Scott?
I don't know if I want to know.
It's a reversal of fortune. It's a reversal of fortune. One of my favorite sporting terms of all time. So yes, when I get maybe a little overserved at the bars, I come home staggering at night. I'm in the bathroom. I am having a reversal of fortune. All right, gentlemen. You guys have been great as always. Scott and I will be back on Monday. We're going to be talking a little NFL draft for, looks like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to be talking about the draft. At one of those times, we're going to be joined by our editor-in-chief, Ben the Pen. So we'll just we'll see how that all plays out. We'll be back Monday to talk some NFL draft. We're gonna for all you draft nicks, man, we are gonna go deep into the NFL draft. And I know everybody's excited because it's a sport that we're all familiar with that you can finally make a bet on. So we'll see how that goes. We'll talk about some props. We'll talk about what every team needs. We'll talk about your first round. We'll have all kinds of fun. So anyway, we'll make sure you tune in for that on Monday. And gentlemen, as always, thanks for joining us. Thanks for Scott. Thanks for Dave. Both of you guys stay safe up there, stay home, and stay well. You know, like we say every week, we're going to get through this. Everybody just be patient, hang in there, keep your social distance, and pretty soon, before you know it, Bob's your uncle, we're going to have sports back once again. So from myself, for Scott Reichel, for David Hess, for all of us over here at winnersandwiners.com, thanks for joining us here today. We appreciate you stopping by. Look for us again on Monday. Until then, we'll see you later.